Hello and welcome to the third video in our aided AAC series. In the last video, Sarah introduced the strategy of aided language input, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing how to model mindfully and effectively by keeping in mind the functions of communication. There are many visual examples of the functions of communication available online. We like this one from Canadian SLT Alicia Garcia. Something like this is important for communication partners to refer to, especially when it comes to goal setting, which we'll cover in more detail in the next videos. When verbal language develops in the expected way, we don't give much thought to the type or amount of words being used. When supporting someone with delayed or disordered communication development, however, by introducing an aided AAC system, we need to think about the types of messages they're currently sending us non-symbolically and interpret accordingly. Research shows that parents of non-speaking communicators do this all the time. So, for example, a child pushes something away and his parents interpret that he doesn't like that. Or another language learner jumps and flaps her hands and her parents know that she likes what's happening and she's excited. With aided language input, you're taking this to the next level by demonstrating the message or your best guess at the message on the aided AAC system, with no expectation on the learner to copy you. This acknowledges and validates the message being sent, which is important as we all like our communication to be heard. Many of those who would benefit from aided AAC use some speech or sign language. As we interpret their message, we can demonstrate how to say it in a more fuller way on the AAC system and thereby teach more vocabulary. Sometimes language learners have symbolic language for some functions. A young person might use words or signs to ask for what they'd like to eat, but perhaps they're not yet using symbolic language to let us know that they are tired or needing a break. By modeling this language on an AAC system in the moment, we can begin to teach them useful vocabulary to fill those function gaps, and ultimately they will choose whether to use speech or sign or symbols. Let's explore some of the functions in more detail now. Whilst doing so, I will refer to this important document, the Communication Bill of Rights, which aims to ensure that all people with a disability have a basic right to affect through communication the conditions of their existence. The second point of the Communication Bill of Rights is that everyone has the right to request desired objects, actions, events, and people. And as we spoke about in the first video, a robust aided AAC system will have vocabulary for all of these things. Non-symbolic requesting might look like reaching, pointing, taking your hand and bringing you, looking, or crying. And as you respond, you can demonstrate the word for what the language learner wants on the AAC system. In the home especially, the language learner may be quite independent and will go and get what they need. But this is also an opportunity to model vocabulary such as want or get and the name of what it is they're getting. Thus, on the day when they can't access as usual, for example, if the item isn't there or if they are somewhere else, they can still ask for what they need. This is one of the reasons symbolic language is so powerful, because we can talk about things that aren't present in the here and now. In the first video, we learned that with robust AAC systems, words are available all of the time. We used to think that providing language at certain times of the day, like with this bath time communication board, was functional. But what if the language learner or communication partner wanted to talk about vocabulary such as bubbles at other times during the day? They need access to those words all the time. I'm not talking here about the setup of a high-tech system when it's first introduced. Often a decision is made not to show all of the potential vocabulary immediately, but expand gradually over time, maintaining motor planning, for the sake of the language learner, but even more so for the sake of his or her communication partners at times. That makes sense. But what we want to avoid is removing vocabulary at certain times of the day, often from a genuine intention of supporting the user to focus on something else. There can be a concern when we provide all of the vocabulary that some learners will continually make requests for something that cannot be provided and will find it difficult to accept that they can't access it at that moment. Remember, number 10 of the Communication Bill of Rights outlines that everyone has the right to have their communication acknowledged, even when the desired outcome cannot be realized. So an AAC user, just like his speaking peer, has the right to ask for something, even when it's not possible for him or her to access it at that time. And just as we do with people who speak, communication partners acknowledge the request, explain that it can't be accessed just now, and explain, ideally with visuals, when it can be accessed. Some learners seem at a developmental stage where it seems delaying access to what they have asked for is incredibly difficult. In these cases, supporting the person to learn to be more comfortable with waiting should be the highest educational priority, and the whole team around the person needs to work on this. Otherwise, there's a risk of the learner ending up with a less robust AAC system with limited vocabulary, or an untrustworthy system with vocabulary that disappears. We know that language is the basis of learning and participation, so we should be aiming for a robust and reliable system with all of the words available all of the time. AAC is a tool for self-determination, and just as we have the right to ask for things, we all have the right to refuse or reject undesired objects, actions, or events. For some people we know, rejecting doesn't come easy. These young people often go along with the flow and don't seem to have strong opinions. They can sometimes become what we would consider prompt dependent. They are tuned in all the time to the signals of others and can become anxious. It's important that we teach language learners from an early age that it's okay to reject or refuse something. We do this by tuning in and interpreting non-symbolic communication that they don't want something or don't like something, and responding to the same. Something to keep in mind when teaching an alternative to non-symbolic communication is that we must make sure the symbolic communication, which often takes effort, is just as effective and efficient. This means that if someone shows they need a break by suddenly standing up, and you are going to teach him or her instead to ask for a break with an aided AAC system, you'd better commit to providing a break straight away when you've modelled the word, or they've indicated by pointing to or activating the symbol. If the activity is truly essential, or it's impossible to facilitate a break right now, we can still acknowledge that we've heard and indicate when a break will be possible. Directing others is another important function to teach. We direct others with verbs, which are powerful words that allow the AAC user to get other people to do things or stop doing something. In the description below, we've linked some videos with examples of using AAC to direct others. Adding people names to verbs can be one of the best ways to support an AAC user to begin to see how words combine together. So not only could a little one ask for the tickles they love or to be squeezed tightly, but they can clarify whether they want mom or dad to give the tickles and hugs. Asking questions is another function of communication that's important to emphasize because we all like to know the plan. Often communication partners are very good at providing expectation, but rather than passively provide the information, we can support language learners to actively find it out for themselves. We can do this by asking and answering questions ourselves as we go along. We might say, "Where are you going tomorrow?" "Oh, I know, you're going to college." In this way, we're teaching the meaning of the words, and it's not the same as quizzing because you're going to answer the question and provide the information straight away. We might in time provide a pause to see if the language learner wants to ask anything themselves. In the last video, Sarah already touched upon the important function of expressing emotions and physiological states such as hunger, thirst, sickness, and cold. Again, we must try to avoid quizzing by asking, "Are you hungry?" or "Are you sick?" Instead, we can interpret non-symbolic communication and map useful vocabulary onto it using the aided language input approach. If someone is laughing, for example, we can comment, "I think you like that, you look happy." Or if someone comes in from school and is heading to the fridge to get their favourite snack, you might comment, "I wonder if you're hungry." We can also comment on the emotions of other people, such as characters in a book or on TV or other family members. As mentioned, one of the great things about symbolic language is being able to talk about things that aren't in the here and now. So we can talk about something that happened in the past and comment on the emotions that accompanied it, like, "Your brother was crying. He didn't want to go to school today. He said he was sick, so he's in bed." Or, "You enjoyed going to the playground. I think you liked the swing. It was fun." We can also talk about future events and provide expectation as well as validate emotions that might arise. "Tomorrow we will go to the doctor's. We'll have to wait. We might get bored. Let's bring some comics." Or, "You are starting at the new school. You might feel excited and a bit worried. You might like to bring some fidgets." The last function I'm going to touch upon is commenting. People comment when there's something to say, something noteworthy. This can start out as simple as modelling people's opinions, that they seem to like or dislike something, or love or hate something. Commenting also allows communication partners to demonstrate the richness of language by adding descriptive words like scary, big, beautiful, fast, cool, and yuck. Thanks for tuning into this video. Please join Sarah in the next video where she'll be discussing how the team around the language learner can plan for modelling.